Anke Ma'at, Hotep, peace, what's happening, world? This is Ahasa, it's Afrosynthesis, and welcome back to the channel. Last week, of course, we talked about a long hiatus and what that road to redemption looked like. And now that we've cleaned our space inside and out and cleared the way, it's now time for us to tap back into our way, the natural way. And so today is all about understanding and tapping into our nature of limitlessness, right? Limitlessness for most people, or the idea of infinity, is something that is only mathematical. But as I like to say, we are divine beings having a human experience. And as I've come to learn, like more and more, we have access to our divine powers. And as a result of that, that means that we too are the living embodiment of art and science and mathematics. So it is in our nature to not just think infinitely, but to be and express that infinite reality, right? And so to give you a tangible, like mathematical example, we know that we could count from 1 onward and upward to infinity, right? We can go from 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth and so on. If you pull out your calculator right now and you do 1 divided by 3, what do you get? You get 0.33 repeating. That repeating lets you know that there's also infinity between 0 and 1. There's infinity between 1 and 2. There's infinity between 3 and 4, and so forth and so on. And so the idea of limit, the idea that there are confines, is simply a matter of perspective, because in truth, in nature, limitlessness is all that we are, right? The confines that exist to most animals don't exist to us as humans, as divine beings, right? Like a tiger needs a certain environment. The plants that exist in the tundra, they need a certain environment, and their growth is stunted if they move. A divine being, a human, can live and adapt to any environment, and that is a testament to the infiniteness, to our intelligence and our nature. And so instead of looking at Earth and this earthly plane and space and time as something that limits us, we should look at Earth and space and time as the foundation that gives us the physical, the mental, the emotional, energetic, like platform to build our spiritual fortitude so that we can express and live out our limitless nature, right? A lot of our elders and ancestors, they speak about nature being our first book. And so in this case, I would also expand on that and say nature is also like our first gym. It is the space that creates the challenges or the opportunities for us to showcase and witness our infinite nature. And so the first thing that I'm asking us to do and calling us to act upon is to shift our perspective so that we can be limitless. Not just think it, know it and be it, right? My mother says when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so our first bit of some homework, right, is to really ask yourself, what are the things in your life you think limit you? And then the second question to that is, why do you think it limits you, right? And so let's begin to challenge the confines that we have placed on ourselves that we know aren't truly real because we know our nature, right? I won't say we, I'll say I. One area in my life where I really had to challenge myself is when it comes to money. So, last episode was about coming clean. Something that I've really been holding on to is my debt, y'all. Like, what they say, like the vising, like I was in debt up to my eyeballs, for real, for real. And there was so much stress that came with that. There was a lot of shame that came with that. And so since 2023, I have been plotting like, yo, how can I come up with $60,000 so that I can get out of debt? That's a limit. Why is that a limit? Because I've decided that the only way I can get out of debt is by having the money to get out of debt, right? If I need $60,000 to pay off $60,000 in credit card debt and personal loans and so forth, I only have one means in order to get to that. But like we just said, there's infinity between 0 and 1, just like I can count from 1 to infinity. So I should have a limitless amount of possibilities on how I can clear this debt, but I've decided that I can only do it one way. And so when I began to meditate and tap in, like an option that most people, or that exists that I wasn't even considering, came to fruition: bankruptcy. Like, oh no, if you file for bankruptcy, you can't buy a house in 2 years, this, that, and the other. If I sit down and I write down what's limiting me, I say debt. If I say why it's limiting me, it's like because I need this much money in order to get out of debt. And then I have to ask myself, okay, what is filing for bankruptcy stop me from doing? It doesn't stop me from buying a house. There's a million ways I can buy a house. I don't have to take out a loan to buy a house. I bet if I have $100,000 in cash and you have a $100,000 loan and we go try to get the same house, and if I have a bankruptcy but $100,000 in cash, I bet you I get that house before you do, right? Like, the perspective is what was limiting me, not the quote unquote reality of the situation, because the reality, I was looking at something that wasn't even true. So I'm not even looking at the real. I'm looking at something false and calling it a different name, right? And so in my own truth, filing for bankruptcy meant that I only had to bring forth $1,600 in order to get rid of $60,000 in debt. That's a much more beautiful experience. And the drain, the energetic, the emotional, and the mental drain of holding on to my debt has been released. And as a result of that, I now have like a creative boost that can bring forth even more money and other resources, right? Even if we think about it, like, we have to be more resourceful in our overcoming of things. So again, if I go back to this money perspective, money takes resources to make money. If I look at a dollar bill, I see that there's ink on it, there's symbols on it, and it's been printed on a paper. But in order to get that paper, you need trees. You need so many things before the money becomes the money that you see it as, in order to spend it as the thing that you think it is. And so if money take resources, why don't we just ask for resources instead of asking for money? And I bet you open the way for the things you need to come to you quicker and with less effort. Like, tongue, don't fail me now. Like, it's really, when I say it's a matter of shifting perspective, what I'm saying is that when we're deep into the clutches of the heavy experiences that we're facing, we're not always looking at it for what it is, but what we see it as. And we also know that our visual sight is limited. If we look at a spectrum, our eyes cannot, the rods and cones, our pupils and cornea, they can't take in the full spectrum of light. So we literally know that we can't physically see all that there is to see. So why are we thinking that the experience that we're having and how we're seeing it is the fullness of that experience? I like to call this like the Rugrats theory. If you grew up watching Rugrats, or if you've ever seen Rugrats, when any episode starts, you start like mad zoomed in on something. You have no idea what you're looking at. It's just shapes and colors and things moving about. But then the camera begins to zoom out and you see like, oh, okay, it's feeling low on the carpet. Or, oh, we were like really zoomed in on like one little particular aspect of this picture hanging in the kitchen, right? It's like, yo, you're not looking at the whole thing because of how you're looking at the thing you're looking at. And so When we shift our perspective, we have the ability to tap into our limitlessness. And so I offer you to truly begin meditating. What does that look like to start? Close your eyes. Breathe in and count to 4. Once you get to 4, pause for 4 seconds. Then exhale for the same 4 counts. And then pause again for 4 seconds. Set an alarm for 4 minutes and do that 4-part, 4-second breath. And let go of the things that you're thinking about. Set an intention before you go into this meditation. Like, my intention for this meditation is to let go of my emotional connection to money, or it's to let go of my limited perspective on how to overcome this problem. And then let your mind tap into its infinite source and its creative power of who you truly are to bring forth options that your mental reality wasn't allowing you to think about, or that your eyes and your visual field weren't allowing you to see. You know what I mean? Like, take the time to experience what you truly want, and then come outside, open your eyes, and live the experience of that which you desire. And so I'm asking us to shift our perspective, because it's time for us to be resourceful. Like, we are divine beings, and we were born on earth. When I look at nature, nature lacks nothing, and nature can create anything it needs. So how are we in nature and of nature, and we don't have that same capacity? If you don't believe that, you're lying to yourself, and I can't change that. But if you want to live a greater experience, again, let's go back to our first book. Let's go back and let's exercise in this same book, in this gym that is this earthly plane, right? So our physical, our mental, our emotional and energetic reality in time and space is to give us the ability to exercise and to grow in our consciousness, our spiritual fortitude, so that we can live our truest reality, which is an infinite and limitless one. So y'all, the homework for this week is to shift our perspective and to tap into our limitlessness. We're gonna do that a couple ways. We're gonna write down the things that we feel and think are limiting us, because they're not. We're gonna ask ourselves the question, why do we perceive this thing as limiting? And we're going to meditate, right? We're gonna set our timer for 4 minutes. Breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. Or for some, we like to say inhale, exhale, right? And then we're gonna journal on what our nature, what our spirit brought to mind, what ideas came forth, or what feelings were brought up. And we're gonna take a moment to really sit with these things. And like I said, we're gonna shift them. We're then gonna ask, if this was not in the way, what would I be doing? Like, where would that energy go? We might even ask ourselves, what are other possibilities that could move this mountain in our life, besides for the few ways that we have already considered being the only ways? Does that make sense? Like, we're going to force ourselves to tap into our true power, so that we can get over the things that we think are hurdles in our lives, so that we continue building into like our true divine cosmic mission. And so let's throw in the comments, what are some of the things you're working on? What are some of the ways you plan on working on it? And, sharing community with others who might be going through things that you've already overcome. And look out for people to offer you some advice towards things you're working towards that, like I said, they might have already moved themselves or presently dealing with. With that being said, It's always a wonderful time sharing with you here at Afrosynthesis. I look forward to seeing us being and becoming greater versions of ourselves. And I'll see you next week. So it is, and so shall it be. Shemem Hetep.